Hello, George the Cat here, aka Neko Vermilion, or Nika Fur. Wow, my voice went there for a moment. And this is going to be part two, which might go into also part three, depending on how I go about it, on my video on emulating elements from that are used in Undertale. Now, and as in response to what what Davo had said on video. Now, the second point in this video, I already went through first point in his introduction. So now, second point is the about abstraction, or rather, an abstract representation, whatnot. Um, I'm kind of confused as to what he meant at first because this doesn't seem to be how I'm familiar with how the word abstract, what the word abstract means, at least his use of it. So I don't know if there's other uses for that word or whatever, but I'm not going to get into that because that's going to be getting into semantics, which, as I said in my last video, is kind of meaningless. But what he does go into talking about, I do agree with stuff such as how the attacks in Undertale from the monsters and the various beings and whatnot, um, they kind of represent how they are an extension of what the creatures are, what the people are, and whatnot. And this is something that I can actually agree with. I've actually seen this in. I'll go into that in a minute with that thought. But a lot of what he said, I agree with. But there is another part of what he's talking about that I'm surprised he didn't go into, which is soundtrack. The soundtrack can very much help in that regard as well. And from what I hear, what I assume is supposed to be a part of Undertale's soundtrack, a lot of it does seem to match. Sometimes the music seems to be set with the situation at hand, and other times the music represents the character itself or the being. Um, I'm not going to go too much into detail because I can't really word it right, but I think it's best described in a video titled "Let There Be Motifs." In which case, I forgot if it was a conductor or a composer or whoever it was, but the host of that video had of "Let There Be Motifs" talked about the importance of music for the scene. Um, I mean, granted, some people are going to disagree with me. I'm aware, but that is okay because I still feel that that's the thing. You need a certain leitmotif, as it were, for to convey what's going on or to convey some element of the character. And this works in hand with what is meant by the whole abstraction point. Now, about the only thing I would disagree with though is what is said of what's referred to as top-down shooters. I'm more accustomed to calling them shmups, which is short for shoot 'em up. Um, I do understand though because many will think of games like Gradius or R-Type and whatnot, or in this case, games like wow, what's it called? Basically, the games where you're a spaceship flying upwards and shooting. In fact, there's a lot of other games out there. I'm not going to go about bringing out any more any more in my collection because it's going to take too long. But like you talked about how it's typically tanks and ships. I haven't really seen that many games where you play as a tank going vertical and shooting, but I have played plenty where it's a ship, and I've also played plenty where instead of a spaceship, it's a mech, And instead of a mech, there's also ones where you're an actual person with some sort of mystical, spiritual, or psychic power who's flying through the air, blowing stuff out of the sky and whatnot. I've actually seen this with Touhou Project, which is one of my personal favorites. Um, I also bring up Touhou Project because that's another game where you have a pacifist run option. You know, you don't have to kill the enemy, you just have to survive the attack. Um, Going back to shooters, shooters also work with what's said in the previous point of having something other than fighting be a part of the game. Because like even with the horizontal shooter Gaia Seed, for example, if you want to get the best ending, you can't kill the final boss. You have to actually survive the attack until the timer runs out. That's how you get that's supposed to be how you get the best ending with Gaia Seed. And Gaia Seed's from the 90s. And of course, there's also the vertical game. Not sure if it's supposed to be pronounced as Ikaruga or Ikaruga, seeing how I've heard both enunciations used. Whatever you want to pronounce it. There is a pacifist run on that one that's called Dot Eater, in which but I won't get into that. But yeah, that game's pacifist run, and although I'm going back to what I said in the previous video on pacifist run, a lot of this also works hand in hand with the point of the abstract point that Dave was trying to or rather that Davo did present. You know, you got a lot of these things that basically represent what that was going on, the kind of tech and whatnot, and even like say, like for example, with the Touhou Project series, um, like uh, like the fight with Parsi, for example, in subterranean animism. Okay, she's basically what's called a sort of, from what I understand, a bridge spirit guardian, a guardian spirit of a bridge or something. I don't really recall too well, but she wound up being all aggressive and whatnot simply because of her envy and not all, the whole classic green-eyed monsters thing. So you're stuck fighting Parsi, and not only do we have the bullets green colored for the whole green eyes thing, but also the music playing in the background that basically represents her loneliness and her jealousy, and it's just so perfect. And that works hand in hand with the whole thing of making the game more abstract. So yeah, other than me disagreeing about top down shooters because I've played other games and no, what the hell? I'm sure some people would want to see which ones I've had. So, but yeah, here's one that anyone should be able to get, which is this one, Castle of Shikigami 3. This is another one where top-down shooter in which flying through the air, you have powers that allow you to fly and shoot stuff. But yeah, sorry to be a bit on a tangent in that, um, but those kind of games do show that not just with Pacifist Run and whatnot, showing that you have other options than just outright killing your enemy. You also have the whole abstraction point, which is done through the soundtrack. So not only do you have attacks that are a reflection of what the character is you're fighting, you also have the music that either complements the situation or complements the character, which, like I said, is explained best in the video, which I will link in the description. There should be motifs. I think that's the video title. I'll find out when I go to put in the description. Now, the third point he makes is the use of mixed media. Although this is more of an aesthetic thing, I think that I am willing to get behind it because it is excellent. You can wind up with some great, awesome stuff. The thing is, though, it is very tricky to execute. It isn't necessary to have to do it. Like, if it doesn't work with the aesthetic that you're trying to go for, then you shouldn't attempt it. But at the same, but if you can get it to work, then yes, by all means, do it. You know, it'll make your game more interesting, make the RPG more interesting. Though I would also say to be aware of the basics. I hate that I don't recall the jazz musician who said it, but there was a jazz musician who said it best that you cannot have your style without first knowing the basics. And that rings true absolutely. You got to understand how it is the media works to begin with. You don't have to be have professional level to have profound understanding, but some level of insight as to why this media works, why that media works, why the aesthetic works before you can go about mixing it. So yes, mixed media, you don't need it. You don't need it to make a good RPG. You don't need it to make a good video game. But if you can work the basics of different styles, work it into a good aesthetic that defines your style and works with the point of the whole with the abstraction point that was made in Davo's video, then go for it, you know, or at the very least experiment to see if it's something that you're comfortable with. If you're not getting the results you want, then don't worry about it. It isn't a must, but because after all, minimalism actually works profoundly well because it doesn't rely on mixed media. It is minimalism works because of it is the very basics executed to the best of its ability, which is something that I say most people don't really understand why minimalism works. That's not to say that you should just rely on minimalism as well, because there are limits to what you can do with minimalism. Hence why it's named just that, you know. But whether you go with minimalism or mixed media, it's all a matter of how if you're comfortable with the execution. Like so, in a sense, I do agree, but at the same time, I'm going to say that it isn't necessary because whether you go for a minimalist way or you go for mixed media and complexity, as long as it works with the kind of game that you're going for, I say go for it. Okay, it's not necessary, but whatever works works as long as it can be worked well. So that's it with this video in regards to the 2 points. And my third and final video will be on the fourth and fifth point he made in this video. All right, till then, I am George the Cat, and thank you for watching.